Imagine this. You are barefoot on rough stone, your ankles chafed raw by a leather cord, the chill of dawn cutting through your linen shift. The street of Persepolis is slick with dew, but the square ahead is already packed. Hundreds of faces, silent except for the low moan of a distant horn and the rhythmic clatter of soldiers' spears against the ground. You taste the sour tang of fear on your tongue. Your heart hammers so loudly you wonder if the crowd can hear. You strain for a glimpse of your family, but the mass of bodies blocks all you ever knew. The air smells of incense, sweat, and old blood. Somewhere above, a priest in white steps forward, unfurling a scroll as two guards yank you by the arms. You cannot breathe. This is not a dream. Today, your body is no longer yours. It is evidence. The priest's voice echoes out, ancient syllables you recognize from temple rites, but now twisted into a list of accusations. Your knees shake. You were summoned at sunrise, accused of adultery. Whether you did it or not, no longer matters. The law here is not just ink on clay tablets. It is the collective hunger of an empire. The crowd stares, some faces eager, others afraid to look. You are stripped of your veil, your hair pulled back so all can see your shame. Every eye burns into your skin. You cannot hide, not from the gaze of the king's justice, not from the judgment of your neighbors, not even from the gods invoked to sanctify this ritual. You shudder as a line of men and women are forced to kneel beside you, each accused, each trembling, each about to be consumed by a machinery older than any of you. Most people believe the legends. They imagine Persia as a place of silk and poetry, of wise kings and golden rules. They think of incense drifting from palace windows, of gardens blooming behind high walls. Maybe you believed it once, too. But here, in the heart of the empire, you learn the truth in flesh and bone. Persian law does not forgive. It exposes. Adultery is not a private sin, not a matter of the heart, but a threat to the order of things. One rumor can erase your life. One accusation can strip away generations of dignity. Think your world is ruled by gossip? In ancient Persia, a whisper could summon iron chains. You hear the priest's words, "For the crime of adultery, there is no mercy. The land must be cleansed." His voice is hoarse, but the crowd drinks it in, some with relief, glad it is not their name called, others with grim anticipation, eager for what comes next. They believe your punishment will wash away hidden guilt among them all. You remember tales of stoning, of mutilation, of bodies displayed at the gates. You never imagined yourself in these stories. Now you are the story, rewritten in public humiliation, fear, and the smell of your own sweat. Think you understand ancient justice? Think again. The reality is far darker than any tale you have heard. Historical records, cuneiform tablets, royal edicts, Greek chroniclers like Herodotus reveal a system of control where sexual crimes threatened not just individuals, but the entire social fabric. In the Achaemenid Empire, a woman's fidelity was more than virtue. It was currency, political stability, bloodline security. For men, a wandering desire could mean exile or dismemberment. The law turned suspicion into spectacle. The courtroom was the street. The judge, a mob with stones in their hands. You realize with cold horror that Persia's kings did not invent these punishments to satisfy personal wrath. They institutionalized them to remind everyone, peasant or noble, merchant or priest, that no one was beyond surveillance. The earliest law codes, inscribed for Darius I, enforced in every province, prescribe not only death, but disgrace. Your fate will not be decided behind closed doors. It will be performed, a ritual with you at the center. You glance at the others beside you. One is a gray-haired merchant, another, a girl of 15, weeping so hard she cannot see. You are all the same now. Each of you is a lesson. The punishment will be tailored, they say, to fit the crime and the accused. For some, it means the ordeal of fire or water. For others, the cutting of flesh, the branding of faces, the loss of all you ever owned or loved. And as you kneel on cold stone, knees digging into grooves worn by the accused who came before, you realize the greatest terror is not death itself. It is the knowledge that your suffering will echo, used to frighten children, control lovers, and harden the hearts of those who survive to tell the tale. But here is where it gets worse. You hear, whispered in the crowd, rumors of secret punishments, of disappearances in the night, of bodies that reappear days later, unrecognizable, tossed at city gates as warnings. You sense, as the guards prepare their instruments, that what happens next will go beyond anything you have imagined. In this place, law is not only a matter of public shame, it is a machine fed by blood and fear, designed to maintain order no matter the cost. The priest gestures. The guards pull you upright. The crowd leans in. You understand, with a clarity sharper than any blade, that your ordeal is just beginning. In ancient Persia, the price of desire is written not in poetry, but in scars. And as the first stone strikes the ground beside you, you ask yourself, not if you will survive, but whether your name will ever be spoken again, except as a warning. What you do not know, what you cannot yet see, is that this machinery of public punishment was not a fluke of barbarism. It was the logical conclusion of a world where the king's peace depended on the control of every body, every secret, every hidden passion. The records left behind, Darius's Behistun inscription, the tablets of Persepolis, the fearful accounts of Greek envoys, make it clear sexual transgression was not just a crime. It was an existential threat, a stain that could unravel the very empire. And so, as the chant of the crowd builds, as the priest's words fade into the drumbeat of your pulse, you are forced to confront the real horror. This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a punishment so systematic, so public, and so creative in its cruelty that even the gods themselves must look away. What happens to you today will be spoken of for years, if only as a lesson in what happens when anyone, no matter how careful, is caught in the machinery of ancient Persian justice. The guards close in. The first test awaits. And as the sun finally rises above the eastern wall, you understand. In this world, the price of forbidden desire is always paid in flesh. Your wrists are bound behind your back with a hemp cord that bites into the skin, each heartbeat a throb of dull pain. The guards force you forward, knees scraping stone. Around you the crowd shifts, eager as cattle before a slaughter. An old woman spits as you pass. A small boy stares, eyes wide, clinging to his mother's sleeve. Somewhere above, pigeons circle the square, their wings the only things free. In the center, a wooden platform rises like a stage built for terror, a place where the empire displays its power not in gold or architecture, but in the suffering of its people. The high priest stands waiting, draped in white, his hands stained with saffron and something darker. At his feet, ritual tools glint, bowls, burning coals, a pitcher of water, a length of iron. A scribe records every word, every twitch, as if your humiliation must be preserved for the generations. The priest turns, eyes resting on you. His voice cuts through the murmurs. By order of the great king, accused of adultery, you shall be judged by ordeal. Your pulse skips. You have heard stories of these ordeals, whispered in the kitchens and back rooms of Persepolis. But nothing prepares you for what follows. First comes the ordeal of water. You are forced to your knees as two acolytes strip away your last covering. The cold morning air stings your naked skin. A bowl is pressed to your lips, filled with water drawn from the sacred river, clouded now with bitter herbs. You must drink, the priest intones. If your heart is pure, no harm will come. The taste is foul. You swallow, the liquid burning a path to your gut. You are made to wait. If you vomit, if you tremble, if your body betrays you, the priest will declare your guilt. Minutes drag by. The crowd holds its breath. But here's where it gets worse. The ordeal is not a test of innocence, but of endurance. Even as you fight to remain still, to keep your body under control, the priest watches every flinch. A cough, a shiver, a retch, all become signs of secret sin. The water is designed to sicken you. Most accused fail. Those who do not, like you, are led to the next trial. Now comes the ordeal of fire. The crowd stirs, some crossing themselves, others grinning with anticipation. Two guards bring forth a brazier filled with glowing coals. The priest lifts an iron rod from the flames, its tip white-hot. You're told to extend your hand. You hesitate, but rough hands seize your wrist, forcing your palm open. The iron is pressed against your skin. The pain is immediate, searing, a flash of white in your mind. The crowd's silence breaks, a ripple of approval. If you cry out, you are branded a liar. If you faint, they say the truth has been revealed. Historical records, Herodotus, the Babylonian Talmud, tablets unearthed from Susa, speak of these ordeals, not as relics of myth, but as standard procedure. Archaeologists have found the very irons, the bowls, the platforms, evidence burnt into the bones of the punished. In Achaemenid law, to be accused of adultery is to be placed outside the protection of your community. Whether you are man, woman, or servant, the ordeal is your only path. And most paths end in ruin. But here is where Persian punishment becomes truly systematic. For women, the ordeal is only the beginning. If you survive, the penalty escalates. Some are led naked through the city, heads shorn, a rope around the neck, forced to hold a sign listing their crimes. For others, the punishments are private, but no less cruel. Mutilation, branding, even blinding. Achaemenid inscriptions and the Book of Esther, in its coded warnings, speak of royal concubines disfigured and exiled, their fates hidden in the footnotes of history. For men, the punishments can mean the severing of ears or nose, marks of shame no beard can hide, yet the cruelty doesn't end with the body. You see it in the eyes of those beside you. One woman, once adorned in silk, now crawls forward, her hands shaking, as the priest approaches with a knife. Her sentence is public shaming. Her hair hacked away, her jewelry torn off, her face smeared with soot. She is paraded before the crowd, a warning to every wife and daughter in the city. Another, a young man, is forced to carry a heavy yoke through the marketplace. Children pelt him with rotten fruit. He collapses. The guards laugh. You realize, with a growing sense of horror, that none of this is about justice. It is about deterrence, about creating a spectacle that will haunt every household. The punishments are performances, rituals designed to terrify, to inscribe fear into the bones of a society. Herodotus writes of a Persian general who had his wife's lover skinned alive, his skin stretched over a judge's chair as a reminder to all who passed. Royal archives record that even the king's relatives were not safe. Daughters and sons, when suspected, could face the same ordeal. But what happens to those who survive? For most, there is no return to life before. Mutilated, branded, or blinded, they become living warnings. Some are sold into slavery. Records from Babylon show lines of condemned adulterers sent to distant provinces, stripped of all rights. Others simply disappear. Their families are forced to pay heavy fines or themselves driven from the city. Honor is destroyed, not just for the accused, but for generations. And yet, the cruelty is hidden beneath a veneer of ritual. The priests speak of purification, the king of order. The law is invoked, the gods appeased, but the real power lies in the spectacle. You see it now, the hungry eyes, the collective relief of the crowd that it is not them on the platform. The system works because everyone is afraid, because anyone could be next. As you kneel, battered and scorched, you hear the scribe's pen scratching the final words of your fate. You feel the crowd's judgment settling over you like ash. The guards drag you to your feet, lead you past the jeering mob. Your body is marked, your soul condemned. You have survived the ordeal, but at what cost? And it's in this moment, bleeding, shamed, half blind with pain, that you realize how little of this world's history you ever truly understood. You are not just a victim. You are the lesson, the living symbol of what happens to anyone who defies the machinery of Persian justice. But there's one truth still hidden, one secret the priests will never tell the crowd. There are darker punishments yet to come. The next revelation will change everything you thought you knew about ancient law. If witnessing these buried realities opens your eyes to the true cost of history's hidden laws, subscribe now. This journey into Persia's forbidden shadows has only begun. To keep uncovering what kings and priests tried to erase, secrets that shaped civilizations, make sure you never miss the next chapter. Because what comes next will make even today's ordeal seem merciful. The prison cell is no wider than a goat stall. You are flung inside, skin still blistered from the iron, knees still raw from stone. The heavy door thuds shut behind you. It is so dark you can only sense shapes, hunched bodies, ragged breaths, the quiet, helpless sobbing of strangers made kin by accusation. In the far corner, a gray-haired man shivers beneath a dirty cloth, his voice a dry whisper. Tonight, they'll call for someone else. Pray, it's not you. You press your back to the mud-brick wall, fighting waves of nausea from the ordeal, haunted by the echo of the crowd's cheers. In the silence, someone hisses your name. You recognize the voice, a servant girl from your own house, arrested days before. She tells you what she's learned. The stone room is waiting. a punishment for nobles, for wives and daughters of the highborn. Her words wrap around you like cold iron. No one survives the stone room unchanged. But here's where the machinery of punishment turns colder. As the night drags on, you listen to stories whispered through the dark, fragments of fate drawn from real Persian chronicles. In Susa, an adulterous noblewoman was led into the palace courtyard. Before hundreds of witnesses, her head was shaved. She was forced to wear a tunic of coarse sackcloth, marched in a circle while the satrap's wife recited her sins. Servants spat, noblewomen turned away. The punishment was not pain, but ritual humiliation, an erasure of identity and honor. Only after hours of public shaming did the priests stone her at the feet of the goddess Anahita. Others suffered fates more secret, yet no less brutal. You hear of concubines and queenly rivals whose guilt, or rumor of guilt, meant death by suffocation, sealed in windowless rooms deep beneath the palace. The court records describe with chilling formality the names of the accused, the rituals performed, the lengths of time until silence returned. One tablet, broken at the edges, lists a sequence of public confessions extracted by threat of mutilation. Then a line. Their names erased from the rolls. Their houses left empty. But here's where the horror escalates. For the king's own blood, the punishments grow creative. The chronicler TCS tells of Amestris, the queen mother of Xerxes, who accused her daughter-in-law of adultery. The accused was not simply killed. She was mutilated, nose, ears, lips, tongue, and paraded alive through Persepolis, her body forever a warning. The law, meant to protect royal dignity, became a tool for personal revenge. Even whispers of impropriety could turn bloodlines into weapons. You realize with a cold dread that no rank, no privilege, can shield you from suspicion. In Persia, the higher you stand, the further you have to fall. But it gets worse still. The ordeal is not always fatal, but it is never brief. You remember what the servant girl whispered? Survivors become pariahs. One woman, branded and blinded, is forced to beg at the temple steps, forbidden to speak her family's name. Another, a prince's concubine, survives her ordeal only to be sold in the market at Babylon, her value reduced to what a foreign merchant will pay. The Persepolis tablets detail these transactions. Received, one female, marked by the sign of justice, delivered to the house of Amet Marduk. Her children, if any survive, are taken by the state or sold as orphans. You press your eyes shut, desperate to believe this is some nightmare spun from fear, but the records persist. The Babylonian marriage contracts, so meticulous in their clauses, list not only the bride price and dowry, but explicit penalties for infidelity, mutilation, exile, confiscation of property. Archaeologists have found graves at Susa with skeletons missing fingers, ears, or jaws. Physical evidence of punishments once believed myth. Later chroniclers in the Sasanian era preserved memories of Persian punishments. Ritualized rape for slaves accused of tempting their masters, slow strangulation for wives who could not produce a confession. You listen as the old man in the corner mutters, "Justice here is not about truth. It is about fear. About making the next man, the next woman, too terrified to ever think of desire." You want to argue, to say you are innocent, but the word catches in your throat. Here, innocence is not a shield. In ancient Persia, accusation is enough to erase your place in the world. But there's another layer. What happens in the dark in these cells and stone rooms does not stay hidden. The next morning, children will hear stories of your fate. Mothers will threaten daughters. Scribes will record a lesson in the ledgers of power. The fear will echo outward, carried by rumor and official decree alike. You cling to a shred of hope that your family will plead for you, that a bribe might free you, that a powerful patron will intervene. Yet you know the truth. Once accused, you are currency in a greater game. The punishments are not just about the body, but about the bloodline, the honor of whole houses. Even if you survive, your father's reputation, your brother's inheritance, your children's prospects, all will bear the stain of your ordeal. And still the darkness presses in. The silence is broken only by a distant clatter, the guards returning, keys jangling, ready to drag someone else to the stone room. You hold your breath, waiting to hear if it is your name they call. The old man's whisper lingers. Tonight, they'll call for someone else. Pray it's not you, but you know better now. In this place, the next dawn will bring punishment so horrific that even your accusers will avert their eyes. A horror that leaves its mark not just on flesh, but on memory itself. And as you close your eyes, you sense the true power of ancient Persia's machinery. The ability to destroy bodies, yes, but also to erase the very story of those who fall. You awake to the heavy scrape of the cell door and the torchlight glinting on iron. A guard's boot kicks your ribs. Up, he spits. Your body aches from the ordeal, but the terror in your stomach is sharper than pain. You stumble out into the corridor, joining a line of prisoners, some shuffling, some too weak to walk, all marked for the day's spectacle. Outside, the square is swollen with people. You hear the calls of street vendors hawking food to the crowd as if the execution were a holiday. The air is thick with anticipation and the faint, sour stench of blood. You sense the shift in the crowd's mood. Today there will be a double execution, one for the body, one for the soul. You see her first, a noble woman, once resplendent in silks and gold, now stripped to a rough tunic, her face streaked with ashes. Her husband stands beside her, his own robes torn, his eyes burning with humiliation. The priest steps forward, raising his staff. The punishment will be public, delivered before every rank of society, each person an eager witness to ritual destruction. But here is where the machinery of Persian punishment shows its full cruelty. The priest reads out the sentence. For violating the king's peace and the sanctity of marriage, you will be flayed, your skin hung at the city gate. Your name shall be erased from the registers. You watch as the guards seize the noblewoman. She does not beg. She does not scream. She stands as they cut away her tunic, exposing her to the eyes of the city. The crowd grows silent, some from shock, others from morbid fascination. The executioner's knife glints in the sunlight. You force yourself to look away, but the sounds, wet, ragged, horrifying, etch themselves into your mind. Historical records from Diodorus Siculus and Achaemenid court annals tell of just such punishments. Public flaying reserved for those who defied royal law, their bodies transformed into warnings that would outlast memory. But the punishment does not end with death. The woman's husband is forced to march the city's perimeter, carrying a sign of his own disgrace. Stripped of property and name, he is an exile in his own city. Later, you see his house ransacked, the family's treasures divided among the king's men. You realize then that Persian justice devours not only the accused, but their kin. The rituals are more than cruelty. They are erasure, a deliberate unmaking of lineage. And yet, even this is not the final horror. A second victim is brought forward, a merchant accused of seducing a priest's wife. His sentence is the living burial. The priest's voice shakes as he invokes the gods. May the earth drink the blood of the guilty. Guards force the man into a pit outside the city. The crowd throws stones, chanting the name of the offended deity. Soil is shoveled over his body, muffling his cries until they fade into silence. You hear a whisper at your side. There is no return, the old man from the cell says. Once your name is spoken here, you belong to the dead. The pain in his words is echoed by centuries of Persian law, each code more elaborate than the last, each devised to prove that no one is beyond reach. In Sasanian times, punishments would only escalate. The Book of Deeds records women paraded naked, priests branded with fire, even royal satraps mutilated and displayed to set an example for all. But here's the revelation that twists the knife. The community itself becomes part of the punishment. Neighbors who once smiled now avert their gaze or join the mob, throwing stones, spitting curses. Children are taught to chant shame. Families scramble to distance themselves. You see the city as a living creature, one that survives by sacrificing its own, using ritual violence to knit its members closer in shared terror. The spectacle is not a deterrent for the accused. It is a lesson for the survivors. Historical accounts from Ctesias, Persepolis tablets, and the Babylonian chronicles all confirm. These punishments were not random, but calculated, legal, and public. The mechanisms of mercy are buried beneath layers of ritual and bureaucracy. Appeals are rare, pardons almost unheard of. The king's justice is final, performed in full view so none may doubt its power. But as you stand in the square, skin prickling beneath your torn clothes, you sense the crowd shifting. The chant has turned. Now they call your name, voices rising like a storm. You realize with a shudder that what you have just witnessed is not the worst fate Persia can deliver. The next moment, the one where the full weight of empire falls on you, lies just beyond this breath. You catch the priest's eye, and in his cold gaze, you see your own reflection, stripped, exposed, a cautionary tale, etched in pain. You wonder if your family will survive the coming days, if your memory will linger, or if the machinery of justice will erase you as it has so many others. But here, in this square, before this crowd, you understand the final horror. Persian justice was never about restoring order. It was about creating fear so deep that it would outlive flesh, family, even empire. And as the guards close in, you know your story is about to become another chapter in the empire's book of warnings, one written not with ink, but with blood, pain, and the silence that follows. You are stripped of everything, your status, your name, the right even to grieve. The city has feasted on your punishment. You move through Persepolis as a shadow. Every glance from a neighbor, a reminder that you are no longer human, but a warning. Flesh branded and memory erased. Each step is agony. The wounds from ordeal and humiliation have become permanent scars. You pass the city gate, where the flayed skin of a noble woman still hangs, fluttering in the sun like a grotesque flag. The message is simple. This is what becomes of those who cross the invisible lines of Persian honor. But the story doesn't end in the square. Your punishment follows you into every corner of life. The king's law is merciless. After the spectacle, the survivors are scattered, some to exile, others to slavery, the luckiest left to beg at temple doors. You hear whispers in the market, condemned women auctioned to traders from Egypt or Babylon, children seized as payment for family crimes. The Persepolis tablets record these sales in chilling detail. One adulteress, marked by the sign of the ordeal, sold to a caravan master for 2 minas of silver. You remember her face hollowed by fear as she is led from the city in chains. For the condemned, even death would be kinder than the fate that awaits in foreign lands. But here's where the machinery of punishment becomes invisible, yet even more crushing. The crowd returns to daily life. But for you and those like you, there is no return. The laws are written to erase, not to redeem. You are not merely shunned, you are made to vanish. The priest will not say your name in prayers. Your ancestors are cut from temple rolls. If you were a wife, your children are declared bastards, denied inheritance. If you were a husband, your brothers must pay a fine to clear the family's honor. In Persian law, the stain spreads. Your crime infects your bloodline, ripples outward, making pariahs of those who share your name. You wander the alleys by night, moving past the ruins of what was once your home. You see the merchant who survived the ordeal of fire, now crippled, sweeping the floors of a brothel. You hear that the priest's daughter, after her ordeal, was sent to a work camp beyond the Zagros Mountains. Each fate is a private hell, but together they form a silent class, the erased, living out their days on the empire's margins. Historical records, Babylonian sale contracts, Sasanian legal texts, even Roman chroniclers, describe these survivors as living dead, forbidden to own property, forbidden to speak their own innocence. But not all are seen. Some punishments, you learn, are reserved for the powerful and hidden by decree. The king's inner circle, princes, satraps, and favored courtiers, suffer their own humiliations behind palace walls. There, the punishments are quieter, but no less ruinous. A royal daughter accused of adultery might vanish from the records, her fate unspoken, her name struck from every inscription. Rumors swirl in the bathhouses of eunuchs castrated on suspicion alone, of high-born men blinded or quietly shipped away to distant provinces. The law's reach is universal, but its hand falls heaviest on those without friends at court. But it gets worse. The trauma is not just personal, it becomes systemic. Families that once boasted royal favor are destroyed overnight, their sons conscripted for the army, their daughters given to temple servitude. The machinery of erasure is total. In the Sasanian era, the law codes even list the fines for failure to denounce an adulterer, turning neighbor against neighbor, binding society together with suspicion and betrayal. The community's silence is complicit, its survival built on the ruin of those sacrificed. And the cycle repeats. A new rumor, a jealous husband, an ambitious priest, any spark can ignite another round of accusation and spectacle. The city pretends not to see you as you pass. Children avert their eyes, mothers clutch their sons. The world moves on, but beneath the silence you sense the machinery winding up again, hungry for its next victim. But here's the twist. the deepest secret of all. In the dark corners of Persepolis, you hear stories of those who escaped. A woman who fled east, vanishing into the lands beyond the Oxus. A merchant who, after years as a branded slave, re-emerged in Egypt as a free man with a new name. The records are scarce, the stories always ending in uncertainty. Survival is possible, but at a cost. Everything you were must die so that something else might live. Even so, the punishment echoes for generations. The stains left by ordeal and exile survive in the family legends, in the unease of every festival and wedding. In later centuries, Sasanian and Islamic law codes will echo the logic of Persian justice. Mutilation for adultery, exile for rumor, the family responsible for every secret desire. Archaeologists unearth the proof: mass graves with bones marked by knives, clay tablets that speak of fines, exiles, and disappearances. You realize now that Persian justice is not just about pain or shame, but about memory, what is preserved and what is silenced. The machinery never sleeps. As you move through the night, nameless but alive, you understand that your suffering is not a personal misfortune, but part of a system designed to shape society through fear, silence, and the relentless erasure of those who dare to cross its lines. And as the dawn rises over Persepolis, the world outside pretends to forget. But you remember. You will always remember. And somewhere in the shadowed alleys, the machinery of accusation is already turning, ready to choose its next victim. You wait in the darkness outside the city gates, the world behind you transformed by pain and spectacle. You are alive but marked, a phantom on the edge of your old life, the cold morning air stinging the cuts and brands that will never heal. The sun rises over Persepolis, gilding the city walls as if nothing inside them has changed. But you know the truth. The horror you survived has left the city scarred, every home echoing with stories of bodies paraded, names erased, and fates worse than death. But now you learn that even the highest blood is not safe. Whispers reach you of the palace, of the queen's own sister, accused by rivals, dragged through the same streets where you were broken. Her fate is not exile or silence, but the empire's ultimate spectacle. Royal scribes record every moment. She is stripped and bound, displayed at the gates as a warning to every courtier who ever whispered in dark corridors. The crowd is summoned, the chant rising. The sentence is read. For adultery against the king's house, there will be no burial, no mourning rites, only erasure. You hear what happens next through survivors' eyes. The queen's sister is condemned to living burial, her body sealed in a stone crypt, the mouth bricked up with mud and straw, while the priests intone the names of gods who will not answer. Her execution is witnessed by nobles and servants alike, their faces masks of fear. Royal women wail from the palace walls, but none dare intervene. By sunset, her name is struck from every record. Her body is left to vanish in darkness. But here's where the terror deepens. In the days that follow, you hear of men once powerful, princes, satraps, even high priests, dragged into the same machinery. A royal cousin is blinded with hot irons, the injury justified by a rumor whispered over wine. A trusted advisor is flayed alive, his skin hung from the walls of the treasury. Every act is legal, every cruelty codified. The law that destroyed you is now devouring the rulers themselves. The cycle is endless. What began as a means to protect order has become a self-consuming spiral. Public violence feeding on the powerful, the powerless, and all those in between. In that final moment, you understand. Persian justice was not only spectacle, it was a weapon of kingship, a device for terror, a shadow hanging over every heart. Even the royal family could be purged in the name of purity. The court annals and later chroniclers preserve the horror. Ctesias describing mutilated concubines, the Book of Deeds cataloging exiled satraps and vanished daughters. Even the king's own lineage is whittled away, heirs sacrificed to the hunger for control. You stand at the edge of the city, listening to the cries fade and the morning bells ring. Your own scars are invisible now, lost in the larger wound that scars the empire. You wonder if you will ever belong again, or if your only purpose is to be a ghost, a memory in the machinery, a lesson whispered to the next generation. Around you, the world moves on. A market opening, a funeral procession winding through the lower city, a child giggling at her mother's side. Life endures, but something vital has been broken. What you have seen cannot be undone. The horror witnessed, the humiliation, the pain, the systematic erasure becomes part of the empire's memory, woven into every ritual and law. You know the machinery will outlast even the mightiest ruler. Its gears are oiled by fear, silence, and the willingness of ordinary people to look away. Yet, as you turn to walk into exile, you feel a truth settle in your bones. The punishments of ancient Persia were not relics of a distant, savage past. They were the logic of power carried to its extreme. A lesson about what happens when law becomes performance, when shame is wielded as a weapon, and when even kings must fear the machinery they have built. You survived, but the scars will never fade. As you disappear into the vastness beyond Persepolis, you realize that your story is not just your own. It is the shadow that falls over every palace, every family, every quiet moment of rebellion. The cycle continues. The next accusation is always waiting. You came into this story thinking that justice was about punishment and order. Now you leave understanding that the true machinery of power was always about fear, spectacle, and erasure. If this journey into Persia's forbidden shadows has awakened your appetite for hidden truths, if you want to keep unearthing what empires tried to bury, hit subscribe now. What you've seen is only the beginning. The darkest chapters of history are still waiting in the silence beyond the city walls.